Hare Krishna. Welcome everybody to today's class. Today's class, the topic is Bhakti is the only way to understand and attain Krishna. And for that, we have the verse number 8.5. That means chapter number 8, verse number 5. Antakale cha mameva स्मरन् मुक्त्वा कलेवरं यः प्रयाति समद्भावं याति नास्यत्र संशयः. And whoever at the end of his life quits his body, remembering me alone, at once attains my nature. Of this there is no doubt. Would anybody like to try reading this?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes, please go ahead.
Bhagavad-gītā 8.5 Antakale cha mameva smaran muktva kalevaram yah prayati samadbhavam yati nastyatra sanshayah. A translation by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. And whoever at the end of his life quits his body remembering me alone, at once attains my nature. Of this there is no doubt. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. Would anybody also like to try? A very important verse, very nice verse. Please go ahead.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, go ahead, Mataji. Yes.
Andakale jamameva smaranmuktva kalebaram yaprayadi samadbhavam yadinasyatra samsaya. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. And whoever at the end of his life quits his body, remembering me alone, at once attain my nature. Of this there is no doubt.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Mataji. Thank you very much. So this is a very important verse, a very important instruction by Lord Krishna to all of us. It's for Arjuna, it is for all of us. The instruction is this. What does this mean? It is about how to attain Krishna. So the process of attaining Krishna is like this, that at the end of life, anybody who is able to remember Krishna is able to go back to Godhead. That is, they are able to attain the nature of Krishna. Antakali cha mam eva. Antakala. That means at the end of his life. So the moment when a soul is leaving the body, that is considered to be a very important moment. Because whatever that soul remembers at that point of time, that kind of body will be attained by that soul. This is a very, very important principle. So, what is Krishna saying? Yah prayati samadbhavam. That means anybody who remembers him attains his bhava, madbhavam. Madbhavam means he will attain Krishna. That means he will go back to Godhead. So we have two kinds of nature. So our nature is conditioned nature. So just like we have fire, right, and wood. So the nature of fire is, it is fiery, right? So if you take the wood and you place it in the fire, or if you take an iron rod and put it inside the fire, even though iron rod's nature is different, as you heat it, it becomes red hot and it becomes like fire. It becomes fiery. Similarly, our nature, we are also part and parcel of Krishna, but at the moment we are conditioned living entities. And the more and more we do Krishna consciousness, then we become fully Krishna conscious. And at the time of death, if we are able to remember Krishna and leave the body, then we will go back to home, back to Godhead. So the entire principle of Varnashrama Dharma is based on this, that anybody who remembers Krishna at the time of death goes back to Krishna, and anybody who fails to remember Krishna stays back in the material world. And depending upon the kind of thought that they get, they will be attaining that kind of body. So, for example, in the chapter number 8, Lord Krishna is saying that yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajityante kalevaram tam tamevaiti kaunteya sada tadbhava bhavitaha. That means whatever the state of being one remembers when he quits his body, O son of Kunti, that state he will attain without fail. So it is very simple to understand. If we fail to remember Krishna, then based on what we remember at the time of death, we will get that kind of body. Right? So for this, there are many pastimes which are mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam explaining this one shloka. Right? So one of the prominent pastimes is the pastime of Bharat Maharaj. Right? Bharat Maharaj was a very great, wonderful king. And he was a very nice king, taking care of his subjects very nicely. And when he came towards a little bit of age, actually he was not so aged also. He was quite young. But still, it was in the previous yugas, even so they used to live for thousands and thousands of years. So he was a king for a couple of thousands of years, and he decided that he will retire to the forest. And the motivation for him to retire to the forest was this, that he wanted to train himself so that he can remember Krishna at the time of death. So this is called a spiritual training. So our Vedic culture in the previous eons, what used to happen is the great Rajarshis, the kings, they used to train themselves to go to the forest. So whenever after finishing their duties, they will go to the forest and they will be worshipping Lord, and they'll try to remember Krishna. And at the time of leaving their body, they will remember Krishna and they'll go back to Godhead. This is the process. So then what happened is, like Bharat Maharaj, he duly left his house and he was completely renounced. Not only that, he was a great devotee. So absolutely there was no obstacle for him to go back to Godhead. So he was in the forest. He was very nicely performing his religious duties, always trying to remember Krishna. And he was already in the stage of bhava, that is a stage of bhakti. So that's like the second stage of bhakti. And then what happened is, one day he saw, when he was sitting and meditating and doing his religious practices, he saw that there was a pregnant deer which was chased by a tiger. Right? So this deer's child, right? So it's called as a fawn, right? So this fawn actually was just born, and he felt very pity for it, because the mother died. Out of fear, it jumped into the river, but it delivered a baby. So out of compassion, he brought that small deer to his ashrama, and he used to nicely nurse it, give it some grass and nicely take care of it. And slowly he started to become attached with this deer, and he used to consider him, this deer, as his own son. And then slowly, without his own knowledge, he was becoming a little bit mad in love of this deer. The deer was not found near the ashrama. He used to always think, oh, where is my deer? Where is it? I hope you are fine. And used to be speaking like that in delusion. And the problem here is that it's not that it's bad to have pets, but the problem here is Bharat Maharaj has decided that he wants to have a spiritual life, and he wanted to go back to Godhead. And for that purpose, he has actually given up his entire kingdom also. Right? He has given up his kingdom and he has come here solely for practicing Krishna consciousness. Because otherwise he could have been doing the social activities. See, he was a king, always is doing a social activity. Obviously, he's always doing beneficial activities for human beings only. But then, because that is material, that will not be able to elevate him to go back to Godhead. And he understood that. That's the reason why he had come to the forest, and to also dissociate from the materialism. But see, unfortunately, what happened is he fell to the trap of this, that, somehow he got attracted to the deer, and he became too much attached to the deer. And when he became very old and he was about to leave the body, he was thinking about the deer, and he actually died thinking about the deer. And can you all imagine what happened to him after he died? What would have happened to him? I just now told you a principle that whatever state one remembers at the time of death, that state a person will attain without fail. So Bharat Maharaj, he was born as a deer, right? And then Bharat Maharaj, even though he was born as a deer, he had remembrance of his past life. Because he has done so much of devotional service, he had remembrance. Because it is said that the devotional service is eternal. It is said that Svalpamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. That means even if you do a little bit of devotional service also, it is permanently recorded in your account. If we do not do sincerely, we may not be able to go back to God in this lifetime, but in a couple of lifetimes we'll surely go back. But our determination should be to go back to Godhead in this lifetime only. That should be our determination. So then what happened? This deer, who was Bharat Maharaj in the past life, had remembrance of his past life, and he felt very bad about it. Just imagine a great king of the entire world. He was like a big Chakravarti, emperor, who left everything for the sake of spirituality, for the sole purpose of going back to Godhead, and getting a pet, and completely going into that pet consciousness, and being born as an animal, right? So then what happened is, from then on, he was very careful not to associate with the other deers, because again, if he goes into the deer life, again he will have a family of deers, and he will start repenting. If something happens to their family, he'll start feeling bad about it. So he was a very aloof deer. He was not at all associating with the other deers, etc. And he left his body. He thought, now I'm going to go back to Godhead. But no, he did not go back to Godhead. He was born again as a human being. Because the principle is, you can't go back to Godhead directly as an animal. An animal cannot go back to Godhead. An animal has to again take the birth of a human being and then go back to Godhead. This is a general rule. Of course, there are some exceptions, like the dog of Shivananda Sena, which I'll talk about in a couple of minutes. So now this Bharata Maharaj is born as a Brahmana, in the family of Brahmanas. So Krishna says in Bhagavad-gītā that those who are doing devotional service for some time and who fall down from their position, they will be born as Shuchinam Srimatam Yehe Yoga Brashtobhi Jayate. Shushinam means Brahmana. They'll be born in the family of Brahmanas. Or Srimatam, they'll be born in the family of a very rich people. So either one of these will happen if they are doing devotional service for some time. So that's what happened to him. He was born in the family of a Brahmana. And then now, he knows the past two lives. Just imagine if we remember our past two lives, how it would be, right? So we are already very worried about our current life. But if we know the problems and mistakes that we have done in the past two lives, it will be a lot of lot of baggage for us. But he was able to remember because he did devotional service. Now, he had complete understanding that he was okay. This Bharat Maharaj in the past life, and then he became a deer, and now he is this Brahmana. And so he was called as Jada Bharata. Jada Bharata means, Jada means fool, stupid. So he used to act like a stupid. He was not a stupid. He was actually very intelligent. So when he was given training right from beginning of Karma Kanda as a Brahmana, he always used to do the opposite. So for example, he used to mispronounce the mantras deliberately, and deliberately not take up any duty and act like a very stupid person. And his family became very, very, disappointed with him. That they were sure that, this boy cannot learn anything, is fit for nothing. So they used to give him some menial tasks, and even those tasks he used to do it in a wrong way. So ultimately they got fed up of him and they left him. And this Jadabharta, like a madman, he was walking on the streets, right? And then one day he sees a king called Rahugana, right, who was going on a palki. So you see, those days they used to carry the king on the palki, right? So he was going there, and then this Jadabharata, one of the four people who were carrying that palanquin, was tired and was hurt. So they needed a replacement. So they saw this Jadabharata who was very strong, very fit, very tall. So they called him and he was ready to do the service to the king. But then the problem was he was not properly doing it. He was jumping in between. So then the king, Rahugana, starts to taunt him. Oh, I think you are very, very thin. You're a very, very weak person. You're feeling very, very, you're fragile body. That's why you're not able to do it. So he just tauntingly says that. Then he replies in a very spiritual manner and says that I'm not the body at all. I don't associate myself with the body at all. I don't consider myself as a body. The Rahugana becomes very surprised and gets down and starts to have a spiritual discussion with Jadabharata. And then he gets a lot of interesting advice from Jadabharata. One of the important prominent advice he gets is, see, the only way to deliver ourselves is by doing devotional service. And devotional service can be attained only by taking the dust of the lotus feet of devotees. This is the process of the Krishna consciousness. So then at the end of this life, now that he is in the third lifetime, he has already wasted 2 lifetimes and he knows it. He does not associate with anybody material, does not do any material activities. Right? As a king, he did so many material activities, social service, etc., all of them. And then as an animal, he had no chance to do any kind of activities. And now as a Brahmana, he could have done some karmakanda activities, but he did not do any kind of activities. All he did was only Krishna consciousness. That is completely spiritual. So at the time of death, he completely was remembering Krishna and left his body and he went back to Godhead. This is the point. So one of the lessons that we have to learn from this is, generally in Krishna conscious society, we discourage pets. That is a general thing. So a lot of people ask, why do you discourage pets? That why can't I, raise a dog? Dog is such an adorable thing. It's so cute. It's so obedient. Absolutely obedient and very cute. But the problem is, the moment we become very attached, there may be a possibility that we may remember that dog, and there's a great possibility that we may become a dog. Just like how Jadabharata, Bharat Maharaj became a deer. So that risk is there. If you are ready to take that risk, then that's fine, no problem. That's the only big risk, right? But of course, the risk is always there. It's not that if you don't have pets, we will remember Krishna. There's so many things to remember. So simple, okay? See, what is it that we are doing when we are alive? We should actually think about it and reflect, okay? If you're driving on the streets, you'll see some crematoriums. So next time when you see crematoriums and see so many tombs there, just think about what would have been the stories of all those tombs. See, now they are tombs like a stone. There's a memory of a stone or a tomb there. But once upon a time, they were just like us. They had the flesh, they had blood, and they had brain, they had consciousness. And they were just like us, every day giving an excuse that I do not have time for Krishna consciousness. And they were very busy maintaining their families. And what happened to them now? Now their memory is just that, we have a stone in place of them and we have no clue where they have gone. Most likely, they would not have gone to spiritual world at all, because as per the principle, only the person who remembers Krishna at the time of death will go back to Godhead. Not the one who remembers anybody else or anything else other than Krishna. They must come back to the material world. So somewhere in the material world they are there. We don't know where they are. So that's a lesson for us. We should actually see that, and it's a stark reminder for us that, right now, our heart is beating. We have flesh, we have blood, we have consciousness, we have brain. We have to engage our hands, feet, right? Our eyes, ears, tongue, nose, skin, everything in the service of Krishna. And it is an emergency. Prabhupada said it's an emergency. It is not that it is a program that we will do at the end. That, I will reserve a time for it. And when my time, last days come, I will do this program. No. See, our Guru Maharaj, Jayapataka Swami Maharaj, he was a very brilliant student in Brown University. And one day, there was a teacher who had come and spoke about the story of Buddha. And when he spoke about the story of Buddha, about how Buddha started contemplating about life when he saw a person who was newly born, and a person who died, and a person who was suffering from a disease, right, and a person who is suffering from an old age, he reflected, Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi. he reflected upon the truth of life, the impermanence of this life. And we are chasing the impermanent and forgetting the permanent. So this affected our Guru Maharaj a lot, and then he decided to leave the university, and he quit the university immediately. And then he was in search of a guru in India. He wanted to go to India. So at that point of time, he came in contact with the devotees. When he came in contact with the devotees, at that time our Guru Maharaj was trying so many spiritual processes, the other Western spiritual processes, so many other yoga, is that all of them. And then he came in touch with the devotees. He got Prabhupada books and he started reading Bhagavad-gītā as it is. And he was very inspired. And he also got some services to do in the temple. So the first service that he did was he was constructing a Ratha cart for Jagannath, Lord Jagannath. So that's how he got associated. And it was very surprising because, see, generally when people used to join ISKCON in those days, after a couple of months, they used to join the ashram and they used to shave their heads. But our Guru Maharaj shaved his head within first 1 week, I think, immediately. It was so fast and so quick. And then he wanted to meet Srila Prabhupada. And then he heard that he has to read Bhagavad-gītā a lot of times. So he flew to Canada temple, I think, and then he met Srila Prabhupada. And he was told that if you want to be initiated, you should read Bhagavad-gītā 10 times. So he quickly read Bhagavad-gītā 10 times. And he was fully convinced that here is my spiritual master and I must surrender to my spiritual master. So he immediately surrendered to the spiritual master and he joined the ashram. That was when he was at the age 19 at that point of time. Okay. So, and then he started doing a lot of services in the temple. And then, and Prabhupada, he was fully surrendered to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada said, you should take sannyas, right? And then he was right to take sannyas. Whatever my gurus will say, I shall do it. And then he was about to take sannyas. And then he went to his mother and said, my dear mother, I want to take sannyas. I'm taking sannyas. So I'm becoming a full-time monk. So then his mother asked him, so why do you want to do it? Why do you want to do this? Generally, people do it in their old age. You should actually be waiting for your old age and then you should give up everything. Then our Guru Maharaj looked into the eyes of his mother and he said, what is the guarantee that I will live till the old age? Right? What is the guarantee that I will live till old age? And his mother started to break into tears that, no mother would like to hear about the death of his son, of her son. She says that, right? That's what happened, right? And then our Guru Maharaj has done so many wonderful services, right? So actually, we have such a wonderful lesson, from such a practical lesson from Guru Maharaj, that how we should be so serious at any point of time. We should be remembering Krishna, right? So I remember this. Once upon a time, when I was new to ISKCON, okay, we went to ISKCON and then I was along with my wife. And so we were new to ISKCON and spirituality and all of this, okay. So generally, like any woman, my wife used to be very worried about, when I speak about spiritual matters and say ISKCON, oh, you're going to become a monk or something, right? So then I asked that monk, whoever was the devotee there, I asked him, can you explain, I was asking a question on behalf of my wife, can you explain why we should do Krishna consciousness right now? Why not later? There's a lot of time. Generally, we do it at the end of the life. So he said a very interesting thing. He took out a paper and took out a pen and he drew a line and he said, okay, can you please tell me which year you're going to die? Just tell me the date and I will reverse calculate how many years you want to practice Krishna consciousness and I'll tell you when you should start Krishna consciousness. Then we were puzzled. We had no clue. Who can say at what time we will die? Can anybody say that this is the day of my death? Do we know that? Parikshit Maharaj knew. He was lucky. He knew that, in 7 days he is about to die. And by that time he was a very trained devotee. And because he was such a great trained devotee, he got Shukadeva Goswami. And then he went to the banks of Ganges and he started to do Krishna consciousness. But will that be for us the case? even if that is the case, that if the doctor says that you're going to leave in some days, will we be in that state of position that we will start doing Krishna consciousness, or will be trying something else and thinking about so many other things, like what will happen to my family, who is going to take care of my family, etc., etc. There will be so many other considerations. Nobody will become Krishna conscious at that point of time when doctor says you have a couple of months to leave. Nobody is going to order Srimad Bhagavatam and read it, except for some few exceptional people. There are some cases like that also, right? So the idea is, Krishna is saying, see, antakalicha mameva smaran muktva kalevaram. That means at the time of death, you should remember Krishna. But if you have to remember Krishna at the time of death, there must be certain kind of a practice that should happen. It cannot come just like that. So you cannot remember Krishna just like that. So just here is an example. I'll tell you, this is a practical thing that you want to try. So next time, when there is something when you fall down, okay, or when something very shocking happens, just observe yourself. What is it that you're remembering? Some people say Amma, some people say Appa, or some people say Papa or Mama, some people say shit, some people say different kinds of words. So you just analyze and see what is it that you are remembering. Okay, or let us say when you have a bad dream, in your dream, when you are coming across a nightmare, okay, whose shelter are you taking? What are you remembering? So that is your consciousness currently. So that, based on that, you have to understand whether you are ready to go back to Godhead or not. Okay, so but that is an important point. So even when we fall down, even when we are in dreams, even when there is some danger within the dreams also, we should remember Krishna's names. That is called Krishna consciousness. So then, that's what it is said. Prabhupada says that, at the time of death, it is tested. Right? So it is said that at the time of death, once bhajan is there. So it's called bhajan karo, bhojan karo, marte jaan le hai. So it says, whether you're doing bhajan or you're doing bhojan, that means material enjoyment, or you're doing bhajan, devotional service, that is tested at the time of death. Person who is sincerely doing devotional service all his life will definitely remember Krishna at the time of death. Krishna says, even if a person does not remember also, I'll make him remember. In Vara Purana, Krishna is saying, even let us say if a person is not in a state to remember, because we see so many people, in these days, especially with so much of medical care, people do not die naturally in a house, in a simple setup. They most likely will be dying in a hospital after a prolonged hospitalization, after different kinds of treatments that the medical doctors will do. They will give all kinds of medicines, and they will try to prolong it. Despite of knowing that this person will not be alive, they will try. Because nowadays everything is very complicated. Birth is also complicated, death is also complicated. So everything ends up in a hospital, in a medical setup, with sedatives, and the person will be deep asleep. We see that, the person who is leaving the body will not be responding in the last couple of days at all. So we don't know what has happened, what is he remembering. Even if we go and try to talk to him, there's no use, because this person is in sedatives and is lost his consciousness couple of days back. Now what are we going to do? How do we remember? So the idea is, that's why Mukunda Mala Stotra by King Kulashekar, he says, Krishnatwadiya Padapankaja Panjarantam Advaiva me Vishatu Manasa Rajahamsa Prana Prayana Samaye Kafavata Pittau Kantavarodhana Vidhau Smaranam Kutaste. So King Kulashekar Alvar is saying, O Lord Krishna, at this moment let the royal swan of my mind enter the tangled stem of your lotus of your feet. How will it be possible for me to remember you at the time of death, when my throat will be choked up with mucus, bile and air? So the problem is, see, at the time of death, we don't know how our consciousness will be. So it is just like this. Okay, when we have a viral fever, or when we are having some kind of a bad illness, so will we be feeling like chanting? Simple question. Will we feel like remembering Krishna? Will we feel like listening to classes? Generally, no. Right? So it will be a much worse situation then. All the medical parameters would be low, And at that point of time, our consciousness will be least attracted to Krishna if we are not practically, practicing it all our life. So here, Kulishekar Alvar is saying, at the time of death, I don't know, my throat may be choked up. There is because of different kinds of bile, that is mucus sitting in the throat. So how will I say Krishna at the time of death? So he's saying, why don't I die now? This is a perfect time. I'm so healthy. I'm so active right now. I'm remembering Krishna. So if death has to come, let it come right now. It will be so good. Death is welcome now, rather than, coming at a time when I am not at all prepared. At that time, I don't know if I'll be able to remember Krishna or not. So this is a very important thing that, we have to remember Krishna, right? So because it is said in the Shastras, okay, that etavan sankhya yoga bhyam swadharma paranishtaya janmalava parapumsam ante narayana smriti. That means the highest perfection of human life, achieved either by complete knowledge of matter and spirit, by practice of mystic powers, or by perfect discharge of occupational duty, is to remember the personality of Godhead at the end of life. So one may be a great Vedic scriptures, a Vedic expert, whatever a person may be. Some people say we have a different Ishtadeva, we have different Kuladeva. Does not matter. Anybody who is following the Vedic culture, this is the conclusion. The conclusion is Ante Narayana Smriti. That's it. Whoever your Ishtadeva, Kuladeva, whatever your practice may be, whether you may be Jnani, Bhakta, Karmi, anything, does not matter. The principle or the rule is Ante Narayana Smriti. You must remember Krishna if you want to go back to Godhead. That's it. There are only two options: spiritual life or material life. If you want to go back, if you go back to Godhead, it is eternal. You'll never come back here. If you fail to remember Krishna or Narayana, we have to come back to the material world. We may be born as a great demigod Indra or some kind of a great personality, or we may even go to the planet of demigods, but then we will be staying back in the material world only. That is still a material plane. It is not the highest perfection of life. So this is the thing, dear devotees. Bhishma Pitamaha is another example of how perfectly he has executed Krishna consciousness and showed us. All his life he was a statesman, right? He was a part of so many political affairs with respect to the Pandavas and Kauravas. He had given a promise to his father that he will not get married, and he stuck to his promise, and he did so many political affairs, like bringing Ambalika, getting married, the heirs of Kauravas. He was protecting the Kuru dynasty. He did so many things, and he was involved in different kinds of things. But towards the end of his life, after fighting the Kurukshetra war, where he was completely attacked with the arrows by Arjuna, right? At that point of time, he was like, he was sleeping on the bed of arrows, right? So he's sleeping on the bed of arrows. And at that point of time, he's happy that all the blood is out of his body, because that blood was contaminated by the association of Duryodhana. Because a lot of people, they criticize Bhishma Pitamaha that he had done he has not supported Draupadi, etc. For that, the explanation is that Bhishma Pitamaha, because of his association, he had to do some kind of bad things. So the example that he's trying to set is, don't be associating with bad people like Duryodhana. If we associate with bad people, even an exalted devotee also will have to do mistakes. That is another example is Akrura. He was associated with Kamsa. Because he was serving Kamsa, Akrura is such a great devotee. He became one of the conspirators of murder of King Satrajit, father of Satyabhama. So he was one of the co-conspirators of his murder. Why? It is explained because he has served Kamsa. Bhishma Pitamaha, he served Duryodhana, right, and Dhritarashtra. And because of their association, his blood got contaminated and he was unable to think logically at one point of time. But that does not, see, whatever we have done during our life, that is not important. What is it that we have done towards the end of our life? Of course, all through his life, he was a great devotee. That was one of the things that was not done in a proper way. But he is such a great devotee. And he is one of the 12 Mahajanas. Mahajanas names, Bhishma Pitamaha is taken as one of the Mahajanas. and we do Bhishma Panchak and we offer oblations to Bhishma Pitamaha. And now Bhishma Pitamaha at the time of death, he is remembering Krishna. He is showing practically to everybody how to remember Krishna. When we think about an example of this, perfect example is Bhishma Pitamaha. He is saying in the Bhishma's prayers, he says, now I can meditate with full concentration upon that one Lord, Sri Krishna, now present before me, because now I have transcended the misconceptions of duality in the regard of his presence in everyone's heart, even in the hearts of mental speculators. He is in everyone's heart. The sun may be perceived differently, but the sun is one. So he has got the ultimate realization. He is able to see Krishna everywhere in everybody's hearts. So this is an ultimate realization, right? And then thus Bhishma Pitamaha merged himself in the super soul, Lord Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, with his mind, speech, sight and actions, and thus he became silent and his breathing stopped. This is the perfect way to give up the body, that we should be remembering Krishna, just like how Bhishma Pitamaha was giving prayers to Krishna at the end of his life. And his mind, his speech, his sight, his actions, all of them were merged with Krishna, right? And he became silent and his breathing stopped. This is called as dying a glorious death. In other words, Prabhupada says any other death other than Bhishma Pitamaha is the death of a dog. It's called a cat, just like the death of a dog. Sometimes we say dog's death. So cats and dogs, they also die. But what is the use of such kind of a death? The death, glorious death, is that of Bhishma Pitamaha, who is remembering Krishna and ultimately attaining Tadvishno Paramam Padam, the topmost place he is attaining. Right? So that is something very great, something to be proud of. That is something to be aiming for. That's what we should be aiming for. Doesn't matter what we have done, how much we have earned, what we have done for our family, everything. How much ever we do, there's no limit for it. Ultimate point is, are you able to remember Krishna at the time of death or not? So that's why Krishna is saying in Bhagavad-gītā, 8th chapter, continuation to this verses 8.45 and 6, he continues in the verse number 7 and says, Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mam anusmara yudhyacha mayyarpita manobuddhir mam evaishyasya samjayaha. Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna and at the same time carry out your prescribed duties of fighting with your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me. You will attain me without doubt. This is Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness means whatever duties you are doing, you may do it, but do not forget Krishna. The reason why you are suffering today is because you have forgotten Krishna. And in the struggle for existence, if you further forget Krishna, then what will happen to us is that Krishna will not even give us a chance to remember him again. And if we cannot remember Krishna at the time of death, we'll simply have to repeat the whole thing again and again and again. And more worse, we may lose the human chance also, which is most likely the case, and we'll be getting an animal birth. Right? Even Srila Prabhupada said that one of our famous prime ministers who was in the past of India has become a dog. Somebody predicted like that. So he was a prime minister of India once upon a time, but now born as a dog. So what is the use of it? Just like, Bharat Maharaj, great king, but born as a deer, right? But at least he had remembrance, luckily. But what if we don't have remembrance? Then we'll become very busy in dog society thinking about our street, right? Just like how the dogs are defending, right? They'll bark very loudly when a dog comes from the other street. We'll become so busy in the dog society thinking that this is my territory and some other dogs are coming into my territory and will start barking. So therefore, should be very, very careful. Okay, this is a very nice chance. This life is a very nice chance for us to remember Krishna, to be Krishna conscious. So this society, Krishna conscious society, is giving us such a nice chance. Prabhupada is giving us such a nice chance to remember Krishna. He has given us so much of material. He has given us so much of association, devotee association, so many dhams, right? He has given us everything. He has given the ISKCON society. We have so many things so many ways to remember Krishna. We have Ekadashi, we have so many festivals. So in every way we can possibly remember Krishna and we can go back to God and attain the highest possible perfection of life. So instead, If we don't understand this basic concept, then we have to simply come back again and struggle in this material world. So it's a simple choice whether we want to perpetually struggle or go back to Godhead and perpetually be happy in the service of Lord. Okay, Hare Krishna devotees, thank you. Dhanavad pranams. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.